What you are about to hear is a story sent in by a follower of the channel. He sends it from Tamaulipas, from a border city where the night is never truly silent, and where, as he says, life is sometimes worth less than the sound of an engine revving. For his safety,
he prefers to remain anonymous, and the only thing he can tell us for now is this.
His story begins when he was just starting to practice his profession, and he had to do night shifts at a small clinic, a place where exhaustion comes before sleep and hallways smell of intravenous fluids, sleeplessness, and responsibility. In his first days, it didn't take him long to get used to that rhythm that seems easy to explain, but hard to live. Delivering babies, bringing down fevers, closing his eyes for 10 or 15 minutes and then getting back to his work, because there was always someone who needed him. It was a tough routine, but a noble one. And he, despite being born in a state that, with all due respect, is one of the hottest in the country, he had never had contact with people from the wrong side of life. He had never been near a shootout. He had never seen a kidnapping. He had never heard a war cry. And he had never imagined what his first time would be like. That night, he was going to find out. He says he was lying on a small couch taking one of those micro naps he used to get through the early morning hours. And suddenly, without any warning, without time to understand anything, he heard the violent screeching of several tires outside, doors slamming, and shouts that weren't out of fear, but were orders. And before he could react, they were already inside the clinic, heading straight to the emergency area. They weren't asking for money. They weren't threatening to rob. They weren't there to cause trouble. They were there for a very specific reason. They had someone who was seriously injured and needed medical attention. That's it. He felt a fear he had never felt before, because it was the first time these people were less than a meter away from him. The first time he saw long guns at that hour. In that place so close to his face, everything happened quickly. He and some colleagues set up an improvised operating room, using whatever they had, whatever was available, whatever they could. Lights, forceps, gauze, the essentials to try to save a life. And that's when a person who seemed to be the leader came in, a man dressed in tactical clothing, very similar to what the military wears. His presence filled the room without him needing to raise his voice, and his only order was as cold as it was direct.
You're going to save him, because if he goes, you're going with him.
At that moment he says it, he felt two things collide inside his head: the Hippocratic oath and the primitive instinct for survival. Because it's one thing to be told in college that a doctor must be ready for anything, and it's a very different thing to operate while an armed man is pointing a gun at your head. There's no manual, no ethics that don't tremble, no amount of experience is enough. There's only one reality. If you fail, you die. In that clinic, there weren't enough supplies for a case like that, and there wasn't an anesthesiologist available either. The only thing there was an imaginary clock in everyone's head, screaming at them that every second could be the patient's last. And theirs, too. They had to suture, extract bullet fragments, improvise, use anesthesia, clean as best they could, pray without saying it. And while they did all that, he knew perfectly well that at that moment he was committing a crime by not reporting gunshot wounds to the public prosecutor's office. But in a situation like that, that protocol simply doesn't exist. It's not that you don't want to follow it. If you do, you won't survive the operating room. After hours of tension, when they no longer knew if it was early morning or still the middle of the night, the patient stabilized. The blood pressure dropped a little, but the terror didn't. Before leaving, those people didn't say thank you. They wouldn't leave a good job, doctor. The only farewell was a phrase he will never forget.
Nothing happened here and nobody saw anything.
After years of talking with other colleagues in the state, did you understand something that nobody tells you when you study medicine, and that is never written in the books? In places like Tamaulipas, many criminal groups sometimes leave money and sometimes they don't. They always leave a doctor behind, with their hands stained with the red liquid of the person whose life they just saved. And they leave behind a secret that doctor will have to carry for years, a forced silence, a memory that returns in dreams, and a question no one wants to answer. What would have happened if that man hadn't been saved? This story is just one of the many that doctors experience in the hot zones of the country. Heroes who were forced by circumstance. They didn't choose sides. They never wanted to be there, but they were dragged into the line of fire, forced to use their knowledge to save those who take lives. Meanwhile, someone pointed a gun at their head to remind them that their own life was also at stake that night. If you also have a story you want to share, send it to my email or any of my social media accounts, and I'll read it as soon as I can. Thank you so much for watching the video. Seriously, it helps a lot. If you like, comment, or share it. And if you enjoy this kind of content, you can subscribe. I really appreciate it. See you next time.